Howdy, howdy, everyone. This is Clara Lawrence, and I wanted to talk through this particular piece because there's a lot going on and a lot happening in the background that you're not aware of. So, first off, let me start with Tish Winters at the Artist Haven invited me along on her weekly program where she has a live with several other artists, and we kind of all do our own art thing and chat and goof off, and there's interaction, in the live chat as well. This particular day, I wanted to do alcohol ink. Oh, and I'm not on all the time. She rotates other artists in and out, but this was last week, and I'll put a link in the description so you can check out the video as well. But since she does move around from artist to artist, you get to see me working, but sometimes it might be a small screen most of the time, and then she'll blow up and each artist occasionally so you can get in there and see what they're really working on. So I set up a camera on my stuff, and so that's why you might see Artapalooza every so often on my video feed. But that way you can see the entire process for those who are interested. There, I got the words out. At any rate, so I've been playing a lot with alcohol ink, and I thought, I'm going to try and do some more stuff with this resin art medium, and I really like the way it sparkles. And so I made up a little quickie mixture. You put in these micas. I'll have a picture at the end of the video. I don't remember exactly which one this was. I think it's the Violet Sparkle Blingets from Rezin Art. And it adds a really, really super nice shimmer to it. And I didn't know there's a technique that kind of goes around with creating circles or images by laying down different objects on top of already wet alcohol ink. So what I'm doing is I'm playing with that and extending that technique out a bit. Actually, I'm not even too worried it's a technique and all that. I'm just kind of having fun and experimenting. Since I'm working with resin art for the sparkles, I'm not sure how it's going to react to drying. It's because it'll create a texture, and I'm putting plenty on my canvas already. And when you start seeing some of the zoomed in pictures, you'll see some of the textures due to the very fine micas that are in the resin art powder. So, and it's also, it looks and reacts like glitter, but emphasize the fact that it is not glitter, it is a mica that seems to be very fine particles, but for some reason it just adds a nice sparkle to it. So with that texture in mind and the alcohol inks and stuff, I don't know how it's going to behave with these objects. So we're just kind of playing around with this particular piece, and I've got a whole bunch of glass, beads that I use for mosaics and stuff. People use these as vase fillers, and they're the kind of the half round marbles, but with a flat bottom to them. And I'm just literally laying them out. I'm like, could be a dragon later on, might not be, I don't know. Let's see how this works out. So sometimes it's just fun just to, if you have a question or a thought, it's like, will this work out? Go ahead and give it a try, especially with alcohol ink, because if you don't like the end result, splash some more alcohol on there, rework the piece out, and create, something a lot different. There have been many pieces I've done like that. It's like the end result is like, not so crazy about it, and dump a whole bunch of alcohol in, maybe even add some more colors, and then just rework it, or even put it to the side and rework it another time. So I was kind of thinking, it's like, if I work up a neck kind of shape, that could be nice and scaly looking, and that's where I'm going to there. So the alcohol itself that's in the background of this piece, as you saw earlier, I kind of dried it out with the dryer a little bit, but basically what you do is you have a canvas, you lay out your colors, and you maybe blend or move them around a little bit, but you don't let it dry too much, and you place your objects down on top of it. Recommend usually a variety of shapes, but in this case I didn't. I used all the same type of shapes. And then what you do is literally put your piece to the side, let it dry naturally, give it a good, half a day or a day, and because of the way the alcohol evaporates underneath it, it creates these really interesting textures and shapes underneath the objects. So we've done some pieces in the past. Scarlett came over and we were messing around with a bunch of stuff, and I had some unusual shaped mosaic pieces. Like there was a heart, a glass heart that I had that made some really cool shapes. It almost had a three-dimensional quality to it. So you saw I used the dryer for a little bit and dried the outside around, so the inside where the glass bits were still wet. And I put the piece to the side, and I actually worked on a second piece of alcohol inks. So I'm just now bringing this other piece back because my second piece is finished, and hit it with the dryer in the middle quite some time to finish out the rest of that drying, because it's only been an hour. So you can cheat the system a bit. But if you're using objects larger than what I'm using here, you may want to just put it off to the side, so that way it truly does evaporate. But I figured these guys would evaporate pretty well. And you can see there, some of them have some hard ring lines. Some of them have kind of unusual shapes in the middle. Some of them just blend out. So it gets pretty interesting. And you do see the texture. So far, I'm super happy with how this is turning out. I also want to emphasize that when you use resin art with alcohol and you create your own little kind of alcohol ink, it does create a powder like texture on the surface, which I mentioned before, but this texture can be wiped off with your with your fingers if you're dusting across the top of it. So I really recommend definitely a UV coating of some type of spray, but probably more than anything, a nice coat of resin on top of this, and that'll protect the powders, keep the powders locked in. It'll still retain the sparkle like crazy through the resin, but that way you're not wiping it off just from simple contact or somebody brushing against it, that kind of thing. So I always, whenever I'm using resin art as an alcohol ink, I will resin it. So keep that in mind. Some other things you can use is things like cups, or small little cups, a variety of different shapes. Start looking around what you've got in your studio. Be surprised. Have fun. Later. All right, let me bring you in for a close-up on this guy. And definitely I'm going to go at an angle so you can see the shimmer on this one. But it dried rather interesting. A lot of texture in there. Something to play with later on. But I do believe that the bling left a lot of texture in there, enough that I might want to put a layer of resin on top before I do any more alcohol ink, just to seal that in. I have a feeling that I could wipe it off easily with my hand, and I don't want to do that. So yeah, that turned out rather cool. And you see the shimmer when I go in an angle. That is sweet. All right, so hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, but definitely hit the bell to get notified next time I put a video up. Later, y'all.